All right, let's dive into The Gene Keys by Richard Rudd. This book is like a guide, almost like a treasure map, to your hidden potential.
It's a really interesting book. What's fascinating about it is this idea that we are all like a microcosm of the cosmos.
We're made of star stuff.
Yeah, you, me, everyone listening, we're all made up of the same stuff as the stars. And this book uses this concept of the 64 gene keys.
Oh.
These archetypes that are found in a lot of ancient wisdom traditions like the Vedic, Egyptian, Mayan, Chinese systems as a framework for understanding our unique blueprint.
64 gene keys, that sounds like a lot. Where do you even begin to unpack all of that?
It's actually more approachable than you might think. The gene keys kind of break it down into three sequences: the activation sequence, the Venus sequence, and then the Pearl sequence. And each of those sequences kind of focuses on a certain area of life.
Okay.
So the first one, discovering your genius and purpose. The second one is understanding your heart's desires and relationships. And then the third one is about achieving prosperity through service to others.
So it's not just about introspection, it's how you interact with the world
Exactly.
and people around you. Very cool.
And here's where it gets even more intriguing. Each gene key operates on three frequencies: the shadow, the gift, and the city.
Whoa, okay, I'm intrigued. Break that down a little bit further for me. What are these shadow, gift, and city frequencies all about?
So imagine each gene key is like a seed. The shadow is like that unsprouted seed buried in the darkness, right? It represents our limitations. Those fears, those reactive patterns that we often try to hide or deny.
Those parts of ourselves we just don't want to admit we have.
Exactly.
But if we ignore them, then they can really hold us back.
Exactly. Now, the gift is like that sprout that emerges from the seed when it receives light and nourishment.
Okay.
So it's that unique potential or that talent or strength that becomes available when we really kind of embrace our shadows and work with them consciously.
So the shadow is actually the fuel for the gift. We need that darkness to push us towards the growth.
That's the beauty of the gene keys. It shows us that our supposed weaknesses can actually become our greatest strengths.
I like that.
And then you have the city, that's the highest frequency. Think of it as the full blossoming of that seed, the most radiant expression of that gene key's potential.
Wow. So from a tiny seed to a beautiful flower in full bloom, it makes you wonder what we're all capable of if we can tap into these hidden gifts.
Absolutely. And that's what Richard Rudd wants us to do with the gene keys. It's not just about understanding the concepts, it's about embodying them, allowing that wisdom to percolate into our aura, our feelings, and ultimately even our DNA, as Rudd suggests.
So it's an active process. It's not just passive reading. Taking this knowledge and making it a lived experience.
Exactly. And the book provides some practical tools for doing that, like calculating your hologenetic profile based on your birth date, which reveals your unique gene key combination and kind of highlights areas where you have the greatest potential for growth.
That's neat. It's like a personalized map to your soul. So let's say you've calculated your profile, you're starting to explore some of these gene keys that really stand out to you. What are some of the key takeaways that might resonate with someone on this journey of self-discovery?
Well, one of the things that I find most helpful is how the gene keys reframes our understanding of limitations.
Yeah.
Take, for example, gene key 10. The shadow of gene key 10 is self-obsession,
Self-obsession.
which, at first glance, you think, oh, that sounds negative. But when you look deeper, it's really about that constant search for validation, that feeling of never being good enough.
Yeah, constantly having to prove yourself to the world. Very exhausting.
It is, and it really keeps us from experiencing the gift of that gene key, which is naturalness, that effortless expression of our true selves. When we release that need for external validation, we start to really connect with our inner worth, and that's what allows us to radiate that natural confidence and magnetism.
It's like giving yourself permission to just be who you are, flaws and all.
Yeah.
And I think that authenticity is what attracts genuine connection.
It does.
It's like a breath of fresh air for ourselves and the people around us.
And when that naturalness is fully embraced, it leads to the siddhi, which is love, a state of pure acceptance and connection, not just with others, but with the universe itself.
It's a nice reminder that our personal growth isn't just about us, but it ripples outward and affects everyone we encounter.
Absolutely. The Gene Keys is full of these profound connections. Another one that comes to mind is Gene Key 15, which explores this theme of fluorescence, that beautiful process of blossoming into your full potential.
I like that fluorescence. It just sounds so vibrant.
It is.
So what is the shadow that we need to work with in this gene key?
It's the shadow of dullness. It might not sound as dramatic as self-obsession, but it can be just as insidious. It's that feeling of apathy, that lack of enthusiasm and motivation that can really keep us stuck in a rut.
Yeah, just going through the motions,
Yeah.
feeling disconnected from your passion and your purpose.
Yes. And the Gene Keys invites us to see that dullness not as a sign of failure, but as a call to awaken.
Right.
It's an invitation to reconnect with that inner spark and really discover what truly lights us up.
So lean into it and see what it's trying to teach us.
Precisely. The Gene Keys encourages us to embrace those shadows, to see them as guides on our journey. And when we do that with the shadow of dullness, we can unlock the incredible gift of magnetism.
Okay, magnetism. Tell me more about that.
So magnetism in this context refers to that ability to draw in what you desire, to attract the right opportunities and relationships into your life. It's not about manipulation or trying to force things. It's about aligning yourself with your true purpose and radiating that authentic energy that naturally attracts what you need.
So becoming a magnet for the things that are meant for us just by being our true self.
Exactly. And when that magnetism is fully expressed, it leads to the city, which is fluorescence, that state of vibrant, radiant self-expression where you're truly living in alignment with your soul's purpose.
Quite a transformation from feeling dull and uninspired to becoming this magnetic force, attracting abundance and joy into your life.
It is. And it highlights a key principle in the Gene Keys. Our limitations often contain the seeds of our greatest gifts.
Interesting.
It's about transforming those perceived weaknesses into sources of power and beauty, like a lotus flower that blooms most beautifully from the mud.
Love that analogy.
So, trusting that even the most challenging parts of ourselves can become catalysts for profound growth.
Absolutely.
Now, another Gene Key that I think might resonate with you is Gene Key 25, which explores this theme of universal love.
Universal love. Okay, I'm listening.
So this Gene Key starts with the shadow of constriction,
Mm.
which is those feelings of fear, self-doubt, limitation that really prevent us from experiencing true love and acceptance both for ourselves and others.
Yeah, those times when we feel closed off, afraid to be vulnerable,
Exactly.
hesitant to open our hearts fully.
And the Gene Key suggests that this constriction often stems from past wounds, those experiences that have led us to kind of build walls around our hearts.
It's recognizing those old patterns and starting to heal those wounds.
Yes, and that's where the gift of acceptance comes in. It's not about condoning everything or pretending that everything is perfect. It's about making peace with the imperfections, both within ourselves and in others.
Letting go of that need to control and allowing ourselves to be surprised by life, to be touched by the beauty that exists, even in the midst of chaos.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And when we embrace acceptance, we open ourselves to the siddhi, which is universal love, that boundless, unconditional love that transcends all boundaries.
We tap into this infinite source of love that connects us all
Exactly.
to each other, to nature, to the entire cosmos.
And that experience of universal love can be incredibly healing and transformative. It allows us to see the world through a lens of compassion and understanding, to really appreciate the interconnectedness of all things.
It's amazing. These Gene Keys are so fascinating. They really do offer a new perspective on how to approach personal growth and create a more fulfilling life.
They do, and there's one more Gene Key I want to share with you before we move on, which is Gene Key 39, exploring the theme of liberation.
Liberation, that sounds powerful.
It is.
What's the shadow that we're working with here?
Such as anger, frustration, a tendency to react impulsively to situations.
It can really feel like a volcano ready to erupt at any moment.
It can, and the Gene Keys suggest that this provocation often stems from a fear of being powerless or insignificant. It's a way of trying to assert control over our environment.
So recognizing those triggers that set us off,
Right.
finding healthier ways to channel that energy.
Exactly. And that's what the gift of dynamism comes in. It's about taking that raw, fiery energy and transforming it into a force for positive change, into passionate action, creative expression.
Okay, so instead of letting that energy control us, we learn to harness it, direct it toward our goals and aspirations.
Precisely. And when that dynamism is fully expressed, it leads to the siddhi, which is liberation, a state of inner freedom, liberation from those limiting beliefs and patterns that have been holding us back.
Like breaking free from the chains of our own minds.
Exactly. And that's ultimately what the Gene Keys is all about, guiding us towards a state of greater freedom, authenticity, and fulfillment. And you know, these four gene keys that we've talked about, naturalness, fluorescence, universal love, liberation, are just a glimpse into the profound wisdom this book has to offer.
I'm so intrigued by these insights, and I can't wait to delve even deeper into the gene keys. We'll be back after a short break.
Welcome back. We've been exploring some really powerful concepts from the gene keys, these shadows, gifts, and cities that offer a whole new perspective on personal transformation. It's like we're learning a new language.
It is like a new language for understanding ourselves and our potential. And one of the most practical aspects of the gene keys is that it gives us concrete tools to work with. We've touched on the hologenetic profile, but there's so much more to discover. Let's talk about those practical steps. Because it's one thing to understand these concepts intellectually, but it's another thing to actually integrate them into our lives. So what are some actionable things people can do to start applying the gene keys to their own journey of self-discovery?
Well, Richard Rudd really emphasizes the importance of contemplation and embodiment. It's not enough to just read the book. You have to really sit with these teachings, let them sink in, and see how they resonate with your own experience.
Make time for self-reflection.
Exactly, and journaling is a fantastic tool for this. He suggests setting aside some time each day to reflect on the gene keys that are most active in your life, particularly the ones that are stirring up challenges or opportunities.
So maybe pick a gene key that's resonating with you and just start writing about what comes up, exploring those shadow patterns that you're noticing in yourself or in your relationships.
Yeah, that's a great way to start. Let's say, for example, you're working with gene key 39, which we talked about earlier, the shadow of provocation and the gift of dynamism. Maybe you notice that you have a tendency to get triggered easily or to react impulsively in certain situations. Journaling can help you become more aware of those triggers, those underlying fears or insecurities that are fueling that reactivity.
It's shining a light on those shadowy parts of ourselves that we usually try to keep hidden.
Exactly. And that's where the real transformation begins, when we bring those shadows into the light of awareness. Because once we see them clearly, we can start to work with them consciously.
Shadow work is a key part of this process.
Absolutely. Shadow work is about gently and compassionately exploring those darker aspects of ourselves, understanding their origins, and learning to integrate them into our wholeness. It's not about judging ourselves or getting stuck in negativity, but rather recognizing that those shadows are a part of what makes us human.
Embracing all parts of ourselves, the light and the dark.
Exactly.
Seeing how they can actually work together to create something beautiful.
Now, let's talk a little bit more about how to actually do this shadow work. Journaling is a great starting point, but there are other practices that can be really helpful as well. Meditation, for instance, can be incredibly powerful.
Meditation, how does that tie into shadow work?
Well, meditation helps us to cultivate a sense of presence and non-judgment. It allows us to observe those shadow patterns without getting swept away by them, to create some distance between ourselves and those reactive thoughts and emotions.
So instead of identifying with those thoughts and feelings, we learn to witness them with a sense of detachment and curiosity.
Exactly. It's about creating a space of inner stillness where we can simply observe those patterns without judgment or resistance. And from that space of stillness, we can start to make different choices.
It's like creating that buffer zone between stimulus and response,
Right.
giving ourselves the opportunity to choose a more conscious way of being.
That's a great way to put it. Now, in addition to meditation, affirmations can be a really helpful tool for shadow work.
Affirmations, those positive statements that we repeat to ourselves.
Exactly. Affirmations can be incredibly powerful for reprogramming our subconscious mind and shifting those limiting beliefs that are often at the root of our shadow patterns. So if you're working with the shadow of self-doubt, for example, you might choose an affirmation like, I am worthy, I am capable, I am enough.
So you're replacing those negative thought patterns with positive ones,
Right.
creating those new neural pathways in the brain that support self-love and acceptance.
Precisely. And the more you repeat those affirmations, the more you start to embody them and the more they become your reality.
The power of our thoughts,
Yeah.
it's amazing how much they can shape our experience. It makes you realize how important it is to be mindful of the stories that we're telling ourselves.
It does. Now, in addition to these individual practices, the gene keys also emphasizes the importance of understanding how we interact with others.
Yeah.
That's where the three sequences come in: the activation sequence, the Venus sequence, and the Pearl sequence.
All right, we talked about those briefly earlier, but let's delve a little deeper into each one. Starting with the activation sequence, which focuses on discovering our genius and purpose, what can you tell us about how this sequence works and how it can help us on our journey?
Yeah, so the activation sequence is composed of four primary gene keys that represent your life's work, your evolution, your radiance, and your purpose. And these gene keys reveal your innate talents, your potential for growth, the unique way you shine in the world, and your ultimate contribution to humanity. And the way to work with this sequence is to really contemplate the meanings of these gene keys, journal about your experiences related to them, and look for ways to express them more fully in your daily life.
So aligning your actions with your natural gifts, following the path that feels most authentic to you.
Exactly. The activation sequence helps you to uncover your unique purpose and create a life that feels aligned with your soul's calling. It's about stepping into your power and sharing your gifts with the world.
That's so inspiring. It makes you realize that we all have something unique to offer, a special gift that only we can bring to the world. What about the Venus sequence? What insights does that offer?
So the Venus sequence is all about relationships and the opening of the heart. It highlights 6 gene keys that reveal your attractions, your heart's desires, your emotional challenges, and a potential for deep intimacy.
So understanding those patterns that we bring into our relationships, those subconscious tendencies that can sometimes sabotage our ability to connect deeply with others.
Exactly. The Venus sequence helps you to become aware of those patterns and start to transform them. It's about healing those emotional wounds, learning to express your love more authentically, and creating relationships that are based on mutual respect, understanding, and genuine connection.
Sounds like a beautiful journey of healing and self-discovery, both for ourselves and the people we love. Now, what about the Pearl sequence? What does that one focus on?
So the Pearl sequence is all about prosperity and abundance, but not just in the material sense. It's about discovering your true worth, aligning with your highest potential, and contributing your gifts to the world in a way that brings you deep fulfillment.
It's not about chasing money or success for its own sake, but about finding that sweet spot where your passion meets your purpose and using your gifts to make a positive impact in the world.
Exactly. And the Pearl sequence reveals 6 gene keys that highlight your potential for abundance, your challenges with self-worth, your ability to manifest your desires, and your ultimate contribution to the collective good.
It's like we're learning to tap into this unlimited source of abundance, both within ourselves and in the world around us, aligning ourselves with the flow of life and allowing that abundance to flow through us.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And the Gene Keys offers so many practical tools and insights for doing just that.
This is all so fascinating. It's like we're being given a whole new toolkit for personal growth and transformation.
We are. And the beauty of it is that it's an ongoing journey, a lifelong exploration of self-discovery. The Gene Keys encourages us to approach this work with patience, curiosity, and a sense of playfulness. Because ultimately, it's about discovering the joy of being fully alive.
It's not about striving for perfection. It's about embracing the messiness and the imperfection of being human
I love that.
and finding the beauty in that journey.
Now, before we move on to part 3, where we'll explore some final thoughts and takeaways from the Gene Keys, I wanted to touch on a few specific examples of Gene Keys that might resonate with our listeners. They're just a small sample from the 64, but they offer some really valuable insights into the themes of purpose, relationships, and prosperity.
Yeah, let's hear about those examples. I'm always fascinated by how these gene keys play out in our lives.
Absolutely. Let's start with Gene Key 8, which explores this theme of mediocrity versus individuality.
Mediocrity versus individuality.
Uh-oh.
Okay, that's something I think we can all relate to.
Yeah. So the shadow frequency of Gene Key 8 is called mediocrity, and it represents that fear of standing out, of being different, of embracing our unique quirks and talents. It's that tendency to conform to societal expectations and play it safe, even if it means sacrificing our authentic selves.
That pressure to fit in, to not make waves,
Exactly.
follow the well-worn path.
And the shadow of mediocrity can keep us stuck in jobs we hate, relationships that no longer serve us, and lives that feel unfulfilling, simply because we're afraid to embrace our true selves and express our individuality.
So how do we break free from that shadow and step into the gift of this gene key?
By celebrating our uniqueness. The gift frequency of Gene Key 8 is called individuality, and it represents the courage to be ourselves, to express our unique gifts and talents, and to create a life that truly aligns with our soul's purpose.
It's about shedding those masks we wear
Yes,
and allowing our true selves to shine.
precisely.
Yeah.
And when we fully embrace our individuality, we unlock the siddhi, which is exquisiteness.
It's exquisite.
The siddhi of exquisiteness represents a state of being where we're so comfortable in our own skin, so aligned with our true nature, that we radiate an effortless beauty and magnetism.
It's like we're no longer trying to be someone we're not. And that authenticity allows our inner light to shine through.
Exactly. Now let's move on to Gene Key 19, which explores the themes of codependence and independence.
Codependence versus independence. That's a theme that I think resonates with a lot of people, especially in relationships.
It is. The shadow frequency of Gene Key 19 is called codependence, and it represents that tendency to rely on others for our sense of worth, validation, and happiness. It's about seeking external approval and fearing true intimacy.
People-pleasing, needing constant reassurance from others,
Mhm.
struggling to set healthy boundaries in our relationships.
Exactly, and codependence can show up in all kinds of relationships: romantic partnerships, friendships, family dynamics, even our work relationships.
So how do we shift from that shadow frequency to the gift of this gene key?
By cultivating our independence. The gift frequency of Gene Key 19 is called independence, and it represents the ability to stand on our own 2 feet, to value our own opinions and feelings, and to create a life that feels authentic and fulfilling regardless of external validation.
Developing that inner strength and self-reliance,
Yeah.
knowing that our worth comes from within, not from the approval of others.
Precisely. And when we cultivate true independence, we unlock the city, which is sensitivity.
Sensitivity. Okay, that might sound a little bit unexpected in this context.
It might. But the city of sensitivity in this context is about having a deep awareness of ourselves and others. It's about being attuned to the subtleties of energy and emotion and responding with compassion and understanding.
So it's not about being overly sensitive or taking things personally. It's about having a heightened awareness of the emotional landscape and navigating it with grace and empathy.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Now, for our final example, let's explore Gene Key 45, which deals with the themes of hierarchy and synergy.
Hierarchy versus synergy? Okay, that sounds like a powerful dynamic, especially in the context of leadership and teamwork.
It is. The shadow frequency of Gene Key 45 is called dominance, and it represents that tendency to control, manipulate, and assert power over others. It's about operating from a place of fear and scarcity, believing that there's not enough to go around.
Needing to be in charge,
Yeah.
feeling threatened by others' success, struggling to collaborate effectively because we're so focused on competition and control.
Exactly. And the shadow of dominance can create conflict, competition, and a sense of separation between people.
So how do we move from that shadow frequency to the gift of this gene key?
By embracing synergy, the gift frequency of Gene Key 45 is called synergy, and it represents the ability to collaborate effectively, to value the contributions of others, and to create a win-win situation for everyone involved.
It's recognizing that we're stronger together than we are alone, that by pooling our talents and resources, we can achieve so much more.
Precisely. Synergy is about leveraging the unique talents and perspectives of each individual to create something greater than the sum of its parts.
It sounds like a powerful force for positive change. And what about the city of this gene key?
The city is communion, and it represents a state of being where we experience a profound sense of interconnectedness, a deep knowing that we're all part of something much larger than ourselves.
Transcending those feelings of separation and competition, realizing that we're all part of this same web of life, each playing our unique role in this grand tapestry of existence.
Exactly. The city of communion is about experiencing the unity of all things and recognizing that our individual well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of the whole.
These three gene keys offer such profound insights into the challenges and the opportunities that we face in our lives. It's amazing how these archetypes can shed light on our patterns and help us navigate our relationships, our work, and our overall sense of purpose.
I agree. And remember, these are just 3 examples from the 64 gene keys. Each one offers its own unique wisdom and guidance for living a more fulfilling and authentic life.
I'm eager to hear more. We'll be back after a short break to explore some final thoughts and reflections on the gene keys and how we can continue this journey of self-discovery. Welcome back to our deep dive into the gene keys. We've been on quite a journey exploring these archetypes, these shadows, gifts, and siddhis. They reveal so much about our potential.
It's been a fascinating exploration, and we've covered so much ground, from calculating your hologenetic profile to journaling, shadow work, and understanding the 3 sequences. But as we wrap up, I want to emphasize that the Gene Keys is not just about acquiring knowledge, it's about applying that knowledge to your life and embarking on a genuine journey of transformation.
So it's not a theoretical framework, but a practical guide for living a more fulfilling and authentic life.
Exactly, and one of the most important things Richard Rudd emphasizes is the power of presence. The Gene Keys reminds us that the present moment is where true transformation happens, not dwelling on the past or worrying about the future.
Bringing that mindfulness to our everyday experiences.
Absolutely.
Really being present in each moment rather than just going through the motions.
Try to approach each interaction, each task, each experience with a sense of openness and curiosity. Notice the subtle energies at play, the nuances of your emotions, and the emotions of those around you.
It's like we're being invited to become more aware of the richness of our experience, appreciate the simple things, and find that sense of awe and wonder in the everyday.
Exactly, and that sense of presence can extend to everything you do. From savoring each bite of food, to appreciating the beauty of nature, to really listening to someone with your full attention.
It's about waking up to the present moment and realizing that life is happening right here, right now. There's so much beauty to be found if we just open our eyes and hearts to it.
There is. Now, another practice that Rudd suggests is paying attention to your dreams.
Oh.
He encourages keeping a dream journal and looking for symbols and patterns that might relate to your gene keys.
So our dreams can offer clues and insights into our shadow aspects, our hidden gifts, and our soul's purpose.
Absolutely. Dreams are a powerful portal to the subconscious mind, and the gene keys can help you decode those messages and understand their deeper meaning.
It's like we're being given a secret language to understand those nighttime visions and the wisdom they hold.
Exactly. Now, in addition to presence and dream work, there's one more practice I want to mention: synchronicity.
Synchronicity. Those meaningful coincidences that seem to pop up in our lives.
Yes. Rudd believes that synchronicity is a language of the universe, a way that our higher self communicates with us. He encourages us to pay attention to those synchronicities, those seemingly random events that have a profound impact on our lives.
So being open to those signs and messages, trusting that there's a deeper intelligence at work guiding us on our path.
Precisely. When you're aligned with your higher purpose, those synchronicities become more frequent and more powerful.
They're like breadcrumbs,
Yeah.
leading you towards your destiny.
Exactly. And as we wrap up our deep dive into the gene keys, I want to leave you with one final thought. This isn't about reaching some endpoint of enlightenment or perfection. It's about embracing the journey, the ups and downs, the challenges and triumphs. It's about cultivating a relationship with your higher self and trusting that you are exactly where you need to be.
It's about falling in love with the process of becoming, of uncovering those hidden layers of beauty and wisdom within ourselves. It's an ongoing adventure.
It is, and as Richard Rudd says in the book, the gene keys are a reminder that we are not fixed, but rather evolving beings capable of profound growth and change.
This has been such an inspiring deep dive into the gene keys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights and for guiding us through this exploration.
It's been my pleasure. And to our listeners, we encourage you to explore the gene keys for yourself, discover which gene keys resonate with you, and begin to unlock your unique potential. Remember, you are a masterpiece in progress, a magnificent work of art waiting to be unveiled. Embrace your journey and keep shining your light.